Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 75. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Wednesday show, Steelers Nation. Dave Bryan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. We had some snow. I think we traded places with you. We had some snow on the ground here.
Did it stick?
Actually, it did. What had happened the night before last, it snowed a little bit heavier and woke up, and yeah, it was all over the cars and everything. So, and hung around for a little bit well into the morning there. So, yeah, all the Mount Charleston and the mountain that surround the area here have a little bit of white dusting on it now. So it's pretty to see. And look, it doesn't snow here much, but. Mm-hmm. It is quite interesting when it does. I think last time was a couple years ago. In fact, I think I was actually in back home in Florida visiting the last time it snowed here. But always weird to see out here in the desert.
Well, go make a snow angel.
Yeah, not enough out there now. I'd scratch myself up on the rocks now.
All right, Dave, got a lot to talk about today. This news, as it always does, broke just a couple hours after our podcast on Monday. We've, of course, written about it. We talked about it on the Monday live stream. But the Steelers have filled two coaching spots that were vacant previously. They officially promoted Matt Canada to offensive coordinator. Felt like he was named OC 7 times in the last 2 weeks, but that move is now official, but always expected throughout this process. And they did also announce their new tight ends coach to replace the retired James Daniel. That will be Alfredo Roberts, former tight ends coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, longtime NFL coach in general. So Canada to OC, Roberts to tight end coach. What are your thoughts on those moves?
I mean, obviously we kind of expected the Canada thing to play out the way it did, especially being as how that report was going on. Heck, I don't know, almost 2 weeks long, expecting that to happen. I don't know if somebody let it slip out or if it was just Captain Obvious speculation and playing the odds that was going to be the case with them. Not a great look overall. I don't think if it did leak out from the organization early on that way. Look, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist or rocket surgeon to figure out which way it was likely to end up there. But the whole Rooney Rule thing and minority candidate things and look, make no mistake about it. I don't think either one of us thought or considered Hugh Jackson as a legitimate candidate there. Obviously he was, reportedly given the interview there. Now, Pep Hamilton, you could make strong arguments to for him to potentially have been the new OC, but I don't know how it all played out there with the timeline of the interviews and all. And heck, I think there was a report that the Pep Hamilton interview wasn't even supposed to take place until earlier this week, Monday or Tuesday along those lines. And here we are Wednesday. So, if they had already decided that Canada was going to be the successor to Randy Fichtner 10 days ago or whenever the first word leaked out there, then shame on them. But once again, we're speculating there. We don't know if that was just great guesses, by media members, or if that's the way it all went down there. So as far as the tight end coach, I mean, look, neither of us really know a whole heck of a lot about him. Obviously has a strong background, is older, been around the league for a little while, has coached quite a few big name tight ends throughout his career as well too. So it was. I think the biggest factor here is the fact that he is a little bit older. He's been around the league, and one thing that we've stated for a little while here is when you look at the changes that have gone on with the coaching staff this offseason so far, especially on the offensive side of the football there. it's important to get some age, I think, back in on that side of the football in the coaching rooms there, and they've obviously have done that now with him, and we'll see what way the offensive line coach and quarterback coach positions go as well.
Yeah, with Roberts, I think the approach there for replacing James Daniel was to get another veteran guy, someone with a similar resume to James Daniel. It was kind of like whenever the team hired the late Darryl Drake to replace Richard Mann. You just want to kind of get a guy cut from a similar cloth, and Roberts been coaching the NFL since 2003. And I kind of like, he was the Chargers running backs coach for, I think, 2018 and 2019 before moving to tight end. So I kind of like that he's coached different position groups and kind of has that big picture look at the run game in particular and kind of how the whole offense works. So I appreciate that little nugget of information on his resume with Canada. I mean, we basically have talked about and vetted the type of OC he'll be and how this offense will work, and the compromise between his more college style, jet heavy, motion heavy type of offense, working from under center more. How will that work with Ben? You just have to find a happy medium where both guys can be successful. A coach's job is to maximize and play to the strengths of his personnel. So, of course, Canada probably can't run his offense to a T to what ideally he would like to have, but how he is able to impart his ideals on the offense while still working and managing with his personnel, chiefly a quarterback that's not mobile, will be, I think, his biggest challenge and be the biggest indicator of whether or not he's successful or not in Pittsburgh.
Well, a good offensive coordinator in general too is able to adapt an offense around the personnel, not the other way around, not force personnel into a certain scheme and all. So, look, we'll definitely find out now. Now, there's got to be some give and take there. I mean, look, some of the greater moments that the Steelers offense did have in 2020. Yeah, especially with Ben Roethlisberger was at times when he was under center and he used play action and really a couple of times that a few times that Derek Watt was even on the field. One was obviously the touchdown up the middle of the seam to Eric Ebron off play action. Derek Watt was on the field for that one. Now, I don't believe Derek Watt was on the explosive play in the game against the the Bills, where Ben was under center and ran play action off of that, and then got the linebacker and the defensive back to collide, and then Juju just comes across on underneath crosser wide open, and you get 20 yards, catch short, run long there. Now, the aspect of it is that you want to look forward to, and one thing that we hit on quite a bit during the 2020 season was, catch short and run long's okay to some degree, but you still have got to be able to throw the football down the field. And when you look at the average yards per attempt down the field and average yards per completion, depth of target for Roethlisberger, that's trending in the wrong direction the last couple of seasons for sure. Now, Ben's obviously not the deep ball thrower he was, say, going back to like 2016. We've already established that in past podcast conversations that we've had. But there's got to be more of an emphasis of him at least pushing the football down the field 7, 8, 9, 10 yards down the field that way, and specifically between the hash marks. Not necessarily between the hash marks, but just outside the hash marks and on in there. The MO on Ben has pretty much become short, quick passing game underneath, or throwing outside the numbers when he's throwing more than 10 yards down the field. That's the way that you defend him that way. And they've got to change that aspect of it. And obviously with Canada coming in, and I expect whenever we hear from Art Rooney II here in the next, I don't know, you would think the next 2 weeks is when the bat signal will go up for that to happen. Once again, him putting the onus and the emphasis on the running game being better, that obviously the thing that you can't have is Ben Roethlisberger dropping back for 40 times a game and throwing that way. That's not how you win consistently in the NFL, and especially if you have a defense like the defense the Steelers have had the last 2 seasons. So quite the onus on Matt Canada, and he's the guy now. So we'll see. And I think we both agree that it would be really an upset at this point if Ben Roethlisberger is not the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2021.
To your point about improving the deep ball and getting those chunk plays, and I agree that this offense needs that. Do you think Canada will be able to change that, or do you see it as either Ben's going to have to figure out how to improve, or it's just you have to accept the decline in that as he continues to get older and continues to decline?
Well, I mean, what is the one thing that has produced big plays for Roethlisberger down the field over the years? That's his ability to extend plays, right? I mean,
right. Well, that's not going to get better, obviously.
Right, and that's not going to get better. So, how?
So I guess my question is can Canada fix that aspect, or is that just on Ben?
I think you got to put him in the right situation to be able to time, more of timing, concepts, if you will, right? Dagger, Yankee, those kind of things that allow you'll snag concepts, past 10, 12 yards down the field there. It's going to take work on both ends, though. I don't think you can just put in the a deeper switch route scheme, if you will, and expect Ben to become Tom Brady, for lack of a better word. They're a guy that can make plays off of hitting that back foot in the pocket, go through the reads quickly, and go from there. So it's quite an undertaking. And once again, you're talking about a quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger who, over the years, where has the primary source of the explosive plays come from? It's either been extending the play, or it's been catch short, run long, right?
Right, exactly. And I don't mean to beat this drum again, because I've said it for a couple of years now, but I think with Canada's more under center style of offense, that isn't going to work great with Ben. We know that Ben is not comfortable working under center, but could you see just a lot more pistol in 2021? And I think you started seeing more of that in the back half of 2020. It's able to marry the play action with a downhill run game, with Ben getting away from center, but also not being in shotgun, so your play action can be more effective. And maybe if you just utilize that play action, that will open up some of the seam stuff more often, where they're just easy throws because the linebackers are getting sucked up and Ben can throw behind them. So I think one thing we'll see, at least be monitoring pretty heavily, is the amount of pistol used in comparison to the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, look, another thing too, and we've talked about it for years too, and we got some confirmation on it, basically from Randy this past season, is that Ben just does not like to turn his back to defenses with play action and all. But on the flip side, Ben. Ben has been highly effective up until, really has remained highly effective, but was really highly effective there during his middle career years there when using play action. So this is a guy that when using it in the past has been highly effective when using it, but now apparently does not like to use it. And okay, if you can meet them in the middle, not necessarily go heavy emphasis on under center, but if you can put him in pistol and not have that back maybe be offset, where maybe you give some clues away there as far as run direction and run play goes, and then maybe you set yourself up to use a little bit more pre-snap motion, right? Still in those instances and all like that. You're just not going to motion yourself into a better offensive production, right?
It largely no, but there are certainly times where one particular play call can give you the edge.
Right, but just adding more pre-snap motion is not going to be the trick to this.
It's not the cure-all.
Right, and also especially the way this offensive line played too, and just adding a quality back. One thing that you and I talked about and struggled with most of the season was pinpointing exactly why the running game was as bad as it was, and you couldn't just put your finger on just one thing, right? It was multi-layered. Backs not performing well, maybe the quarterback not making great pre-snap reads, offensive line obviously not living up to their end of it, and that includes tight ends and blocking on top of it there. So this is quite an undertaking, and merely just changing out the offensive coordinator and putting Ben in more pistol and throwing in a heavier dose of pre-snap motion is not going to be just what fixes it here.
Sure. No, I'm just thinking about differences that we'll see from a Matt Canada-led offense compared to a Randy Fichtner-led offense, and I think that would be one of those examples of compromise where you say the Canada's a heavy under center play action kind of guy, but that won't work perfectly with Ben and where he's at in his career. So Pistol can be that blend of trying to do things that you want to do as an offensive coordinator, but still playing to the strengths of your personnel, which is what any good coach should be able to do.
And let's face it too, some of Matt Canada's successes over the years have revolved around more mobile quarterbacks than Ben Roethlisberger, right? In other words, I'm not so sure that how many times during the 2021 season, assuming Ben does come back and play, we'll see him roll out to the right and throw back to to Zach Banner, on a trick play that way. I'm pretty confident that if we see it once, we won't see it more than once.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get to seeing it once first, and we'll see. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's not a surprise. And as I said, again, a couple weeks before, this was this team trying to thread the needle, rock the boat without tipping it over of, a new guy, but a known guy as well. Someone that's only been on staff for 1 year, hopefully can bring some fresh ideas, perspective to this offense, but not someone that's a brand new outsider. And in a year where you're not going to likely have an offseason program, OTAs and things like that, going with an out-of-house candidate would make implementing their system even more difficult, not impossible. And I want to be clear about that. Again, you look at what the Browns did, for example, with Stefanski and that new coaching staff. I mean, it can be done, but it would be more difficult to do if you're starting that basically in late July with training camp, with the season just a couple weeks away. So I think that was another compelling reason why this team wanted to stay in-house.
And another thing here, another layer to this too on top of it is, you get to keep the same, terminology and verbiage. Obviously, not a lot of that's going to you wouldn't think change with Canada. Canada will just adapt things around some of that stuff there. But can he, make? And we mentioned this just recently on another show. Can he make the offense look the same in a lot of different situations with similar or same personnel groupings, yet run so many variations of things off of that? Deception is one of the biggest parts of having a successful offense, and obviously self-scouting and learning your own tendencies and then going against those own tendencies is one of the key things here. So, and on top of that is, I think, like it or not, Ben's going to have to. We're going to have to see that time to throw number go up a little bit. He's going to have to. And unfortunately, that might lead to more sacks, right? On top of it there. The last couple of years, Ben has been among the leaders in snap to throw times. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to see that number increase a little bit, especially if you're going to be able to want to start pushing the football down the field a little bit more.
Yeah, and I just think overall for Canada, I mean, the mark of any OC is just what you do in situational football, what you do in big moments. I don't think the play calling was good enough in some of those big marquee spotlight moments in 2020. And so I think when you have a team still led by Ben, I mean, he can make up for a lot and mask a lot. He'll run a lot of no huddle, and he'll make your job, I think, easier between the 20s and during most parts of the game. But whenever it's last drive of the game or not 2 minute drill, but red zone, 4th and goal, 3rd down, what are going to be your go-to play calls? And hopefully Canada can do a better job, because I don't think Randy Fichtner ever really had a great feel or any of those go-to plays that work really well.
Well, once again, you go back to It wasn't all on Randy Fichtner. I mean, I think you kid yourself to put that much blame on him. But
in some of those big spotlight moments, throwing to Gerald Hawkins, going empty at a 22 personnel on 4th and goal, those were 4th and 1 slug with McFarland. Those were just abysmal play calls in the biggest moments of the game.
Sure, but you can go through any game in the NFL and pick out 2 or 3 plays where
but not in those big moments though, not in those marquee. These are game defining moments where we're going to score or we're not going to score.
Well, you go back to the one to McFarland there. If that works, how much are we talking about after a fact? A lot of it is results biased aspects of it.
And not on that. I think if you went into a vacuum and said, "Is that a good play call?" No one would be like, "That's a good play call."
No, I think you're fooling yourself there. I don't.
I mean,
think truthful.
But we can be critical of the play call. We were both critical of the play call.
Sure, you can. But the thing is, you're not going to. It's going to be less talked about. It's not something that you're going to center a conversation and a podcast around. If it works, you're not going to say, "Oh, thank God that worked," because what an awful play call it was.
Yeah, but it's just a bad play call. We're just calling it what it is. We're just saying it was a bad play call. I mean, if it works, then yeah, we can play. But we can play that game at anything. If anything a player does or a coach calls works, then we just say though, you can't. You can be critical of it. And I think we're just both being critical of it because it's just a bad play call.
Okay, if you say so, go ahead.
I just think there were. I think they were just those situational moments that this team has. I mean, and again, some of this is on players for sure, but just how bad they were in short yardage as well. Again, some of that's on players, but I think it's an OC's job to find a way to make yourself better in those moments. And for the past 2 years, they were just terrible at it. And that's another area where they need to get better.
One of the biggest indictments, if you want to go back to stuff like the McFarland play call, is knowing more of the history of what happened the week before, which Joe Blow watching the game that doesn't pay attention to the practice reports, doesn't know that Ben wasn't on the field at practice that week, and then you have a rookie out there with him, and you're running for one thing, you're running something that you probably don't run a lot of anyway, and damn good and well they didn't spend a lot of practice time on it that week. If you want to knock it from that angle, absolutely.
Yeah, that's where I'm knocking it from. Yeah, because remember the time we talked about it, like in a vacuum, running that play on 2nd and 5, that's fine. I mean, I can live with that. I'm not going to get too mad about it. But in that gotta have it type moment where you're riding on everything to get that perfect and have a chance to win the game, is that where you want to roll the dice? And is that the hill you want to die on? I just think that was just a bad process by the Steelers.
Here's the thing. Ben's going to have to submit himself to running a little bit more inside structure, okay? Mm-hmm. And now, look, could they maybe afford to use more up-tempo early in games? Absolutely they could. One of the things that I was always impressed with the Patriots and Tom Brady going back 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, is sometimes they'd come out at the start of games, man, and boom. I mean, they would they'd catch a defense in a certain personnel grouping with their own personnel grouping that they liked, and they just hammer it. And down the field they go, 8, 9 plays, touchdown, 7-0. And then, they'd get a defense on their heels, gassed at that point. Then, it just kind of snowballed from there. Make no mistake about it. One of the big things that's on Matt Canada at this point now is starting faster, period. I mean, we have got to start seeing a Steelers offense that gets 7-0 leads in games. Not 3-0, not 6-0. 7-0 leads, okay? And in order for them to make a serious run at this thing and win a high number of games, because look, I think we both agree they're not going to have the defense that they probably had the last couple of years just by attrition of the offense, age, whatever. The offense is going to have to take up some of the slack. They're going to have to be able to run, they're going to have to possess the football more instead of getting in situations like they had 4 or 5 times this past season where you come out at halftime, you have to abandon the running game, you have to, go empty, and Ben Roethlisberger has to throw the football 40-something times a game.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that is the most important part and the number one stat in gauge of Canada's success or failure that I'll be looking at. I think both of us will be looking at, again, one offensive touchdown on an opening drive the last 2 years. Every other team in the league has at least 3. The Packers lead the NFL with 17. Just abysmal starting. And again, some of that's on execution. You can go through probably half of those 33 drives and say they were just blatant execution errors on that. But just overall, I think coaching an offensive coordinator's job at least is really reflective in that opening script, the first 10, 15 plays, first 2 or 3 drives, and especially that first drive. And they never started out well. They always had to adjust in game. And that just never felt like they had a great game plan coming out of the locker room.
Okay.
All right. So the other coaching staff vacancies are still the offensive line coach. I don't even know who's interviewing for the job now that Hank Fraley's gone back to Detroit. So I don't even know who's there anymore or what options there may be. And the quarterback position is also going to be filled, given Canada's promotion from quarterbacks coach to offensive coordinator. According to Jerry Dulac, Mike Sullivan, longtime coach, is interviewing for the job. Not sure if that has happened or will happen, or what the status of that is. But Sullivan, most recently with the Broncos in 2018. Been a long-time coach, long-time OC of the New York Giants, for example. So, again, to your point about just adding some more veteran coaches to surround a first-time NFL OC in Matt Canada, hopefully, if Sullivan gets hired.
Yeah, look, another guy with experience, you would expect that to be the direction there. I don't know what happened to the report that said they wanted to hire an offensive line coach before they hired, somebody. There's a level of BS somewhere in there, whether it be in a reporting or whether it be in, what the Steelers were leaking out or whatever there. But the key thing is here, man, these are some key hires. Like it or not, these are some key hires by Mike Tomlin right now, and that's one of the things that I kind of wondered, especially when it came to OC offensive coordinator, is, man, this could potentially be Mike Tomlin's last offensive coordinator. Do you really want it to be a guy that really first time NFL OC, if you will? We'll obviously see, and obviously you would think that Ben Roethlisberger, part of him being in part of that equation, played a role in it and all like that. But you better surround Matt Canada with highly capable people. And I don't know what you think about Eddie Faulkner at running, but there's not a lot of experience around him. Prior to some of these hires. So you better get this offensive line coach hire right. You better you better alleviate Matt Canada having to worry about the quarterback room altogether by getting an experienced quarterbacks coach in there. You obviously already hired a experienced tight ends coach there that hopefully will give you some confidence there and help in that area there. So. Look, hiring a hockey coach and Mike Sullivan, I don't know about that, but no, I'm just kidding there. But I wonder how, I'm sure people had fun with that on Twitter. But look, he's got a nice background. Sullivan does. You look back at some of his work. He's even worked with some receivers, I think, too, going back even to Plaxico Burress when Plaxico Burress was with the Giants, obviously worked with Manning there. I don't think he's done anything really since the Broncos in 2000. In 19 there. I'm kind of hoping Pep Hamilton's name still stays in this thing as well too, because I thought he's did a magnificent job with Herbert over there, and I think he's kind of a guy that can deal with both an older quarterback in Roethlisberger and younger quarterbacks such as Mason Rudolph and obviously Dwayne Haskins, who's in that room right now, and you're hoping that your quarterback coach that you hire now is will go past the Roethlisberger era. So that obviously one would think that the next progression, which we don't think the team was going to draft a quarterback this year, it would obviously be more than likely 2022 that can help in that maturation process or quickly at that of your next hopeful franchise quarterback, that way. So be interesting to see who they settle on. I would think that we'd get news on that on both the offensive line coach and the quarterbacks coach by the end of this week.
Yeah, I would think so. I would hope so. And I just think in principle, it's just good for this team to hire a dedicated quarterbacks coach the way it was good for them to bring in Matt Canada last year, where you didn't have your OC pulling double duty, where you're working with Ben and trying to work with these young quarterbacks. And now that Rudolph is a little bit more established, but still learning and growing, and that maturation process is important. And of course, you'll hopefully have Dwayne Haskins, and you need a dedicated coach to work with him. So I think hiring a quarterback coach in general is the right idea. I think hiring a veteran guy is also ideal, given just the fact that the other guys on the staff, including your OC, are relatively young and relatively new to the NFL.
Mm-hmm. So we hopefully, I don't know, will we get news by that by the time this show ends? We start a little bit later today, so.
Way it goes. All right, Dave, let's transition to some draft talk. It is Senior Bowl week. Unfortunately, we are not there in person at Mobile, Alabama. We're able to still keep a pretty good eye on things and go through some tape that's available to us. So where do you want to go? Do you want to just do some general Senior Bowl thoughts, or talk about some of the specific reporting about what's going on down there, who the Steelers might have interest in? What direction do you want to take things?
Yes.
Okay, let's start with a more specific report, and it is just, one report, and so you got to take stuff with a grain of salt right now, especially here in late January and draft season. But Tony Pauline at Pro Football Network did have a little nugget of information about the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday, saying the Steelers and the Miami Dolphins were showing particular interest in Alabama running back Najee Harris, which should not be a surprise. Harris, probably the top back, maybe the second best back in this class. Steelers certainly likely to be adding a running back at some point in the draft, sooner than later, I would imagine. So Najee Harris on the Steelers' radar.
Not a huge shock, right?
No.
And I'm willing to bet that the Miami Dolphins and Pittsburgh Steelers aren't the only two teams that will be talking to Najee Harris. I'm going to go out on a limb. All right,
safe bet.
Yeah. Look, anytime you attach the Pittsburgh Steelers to any kind of reports like this, you're going to get clicks and get talks, right?
Yep.
I mean, more so than probably any other team, just because the fan base and widespread and all like that. I'm not disputing the report. Obviously, I think there's obviously some level of truth to it, but it's easy to highlight. Well, these are the two teams right here, and the Steelers are one of them that guarantee you quick promotion of it. Now, in the same breath, our Daniel Valente last year, when I think he was one of the initial ones that talked to, who was it, Chase Claypool. Mm-hmm. And I think about the same time last year, we had an initial player the Steelers were interested in, supposed heavy interest in at the Senior Bowl in Chase Claypool. And I think I dropped what I was doing. I think I did a 4 or 5 game contextualization on Chase Claypool at that time, and lo and behold, what ended up happening? He ended up being their, obviously not first round draft pick, but he ended up being their first overall selection in the draft. So, can you totally discount these reports? No, especially when you're talking about a Steelers 2021 team right now, where really the only, I think, givens at the running back position of absolute locks to make the 2021 Steelers roster at running back are Benny Snell Jr. and Anthony McFarland Jr. Obviously, Jalen Samuels is still under contract, but yeah, I wouldn't bet any money of him being a slam dunk to make the roster there. So they are going to add and we probably both agree that it's highly unlikely that James Conner will be back in 2021. If he is back, it's going to be on a minimal deal, and they're not going to be married to him on top of it. So it makes sense that the Steelers will add a running back at some point during this year's draft, and that would explain interest in a top-rated back in Najee Harris, who you've already heavily profiled that you think really fits the bill.
Yeah, I came away really impressed. Just pushing aside for a moment the value of a running back in the first round, just setting that conversation aside, just looking at the player himself, Najee Harris, extremely impressive. Reminds me so much of Le'Veon Bell. In his weigh-in yesterday, was almost identical to Le'Veon Bell. They're the same height, literally the same weight down to the pound, 230, and just a very overall similar profile. And yeah, I remember, after they drafted Claypool, Colbert and Tomlin said that they really kind of first got that impression from Claypool of interest during the Senior Bowl, watching him in special teams drills, blocking drills, and just being this big, unique build. at wide receiver. And Harris, although apparently he was advised by agents not to actually practice at the Senior Bowl, just go down there for interviews, actually practice and was in full pads yesterday. And that's just one of those things that will certainly endear himself to all football coaches, including Mike Tomlin. So I'm not saying Harris is going to be the guy. I'm just saying the Steelers clearly have interest. It's a position they're going to address, and you can make a very logical, connection between those two things.
Yeah, especially, and look, I mean, I think we both agree this isn't going to be like a Le'Veon Bell situation where Le'Veon Bell was available to the Steelers in the second round when they got him. Najee Harris will be off the board. I think that's a safe assumption. I don't like to get into he'll never be there or he'll fall this far type of talk. But I'm going to go out on another limb here. I've gone out like on 4 limbs already in this show. I think I'm going to go out on a limb that say that Najee Harris will not be on the board by the time the Steelers pick in the second round.
Are you going to bet our new GameStop and Blockbuster stocks on that?
Do we have any? I saw something. What is that story even? I saw it highlighted, but I didn't.
Yeah,
I don't have time to do that kind of stuff like you do.
Well, I'm not doing it either, but I probably should be. I should be. But I mean, they're like Reddit and Redditors or something are like boosting the stocks of GameStop and Blockbuster and just random companies to inflate their prices and go crazy, and people are apparently making a ton of money off of it. So that's interesting.
Oh, okay, all right.
But anyway, Harris. If they want Harris, if he's even there,
are you telling me not to buy GameStop stock? Is that?
I'm not giving any advice here, financially or otherwise. I'm just saying what's happening on Twitter that GameStop stock is through the roof. But yeah, if you want Harris, you have to get him at 24, and he may not be there. I think Miami picks twice in the first round. I think they have pick 18, so it wouldn't shock me to see Miami take Harris at number 18 and take him away from Pittsburgh.
And look, I mean, that's one thing that you have to consider too. Look, is the fact that they do have 2 picks, Miami, but they sure, they're an up and coming team, and they sure could use a quality running back in that system too. Take some of the
his old running back.
Right, to get some of that on. And look, that's another great point. Is they got a little bit of they know a little bit more probably about the person in Najee by having one of his former teammates there on top of it. But and obviously them having their coaching staff down there in Mobile has some degree of an advantage. I think we both agree on that. Being able to see how the players respond in meeting type situations, obviously practices and ramp up for games on top of it there. So
is Harris on the Dolphins coaching side or is he on the Panthers side? Do we know?
I don't,
look that up. Because obviously if they're coaching him, then obviously that's the one big benefit.
Heck, I'm still trying to match up the numbers with some of these guys.
Yeah.
On the all 22 tape with them from the practices.
Harris, I think he is being coached by the Dolphins coaches, so they were going to have as much insight as anybody into him. And that is one big. So if he was on the other side, it'd be a little harder for them to evaluate because they're never around the guy. But they're literally coaching him, which is obviously a benefit to them.
And it was good to see. Look, I think the initial report from Tony Pauline was that Najee Harris was advised by his agent to basically just show up and get weighed and take it to the house there. But it was good to see him do whatever, the things that he did in at least the individuals, I think, yesterday there. Look, you're going to go that far, go ahead and play, man. I guess we'll see come Saturday whether or not, Najee decides to go that far there. But I know the Steelers kind of frown on these guys bypassing that, that kind of stuff there. So we'll see how much he really wants to compete come the end of the week. And within that, there's still the chance that he gets injured there. But how many times during a Senior Bowl as a running back, get him lathered up at least. Get him 3 or 4 carries and throw to him once and let him pass protect once and then get him off the field,
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure. Was he in team drills yesterday? I don't think I saw him in team drills, but I might have.
I didn't make it through all of it. No.
Okay. I'm not 100% sure if he was or not. So, but he's down there competing to some level, which is more than what he was advised to do. Which is again is going to endear himself to the coaching staff. So I think was there anyone else reported interest? I think that was the only rumor that we saw about Najee Harris. There was no other player linked in some way to the Steelers. Correct.
That was the only one that I think that I saw. I mean, we're bound to get 2 or 3 more by
Sure.
the end of the week, and we'll talk about them and write about them as they come.
Absolutely. All right, so let's take a bigger, macro picture of the 2021 Senior Bowl. I know we've had the access to the All-22, which has been very nice to have since we are not there in person this season. Dave, any overall thoughts on either weigh-ins or first day of practice or things you're looking for? Just a wide-open question on your thoughts on the Senior Bowl so far.
Not really. You've obviously gone deeper in it than I have, and why don't you kind of go over your write-up from day one? I got through some, half of the drills. There's a lot of media, missing in that we've got access to, but I was not able to go through every single drill yesterday. Heck, like I said, I'm still trying to match up numbers with guys and learn about the prospects in holes. So why don't you go over the weigh-in? I mean, we both tabulated the weigh-in results together there, but there wasn't anything really overly shocking that stuck out to me as far as the weigh-ins went. But what were the things that stuck out? At least in the drill aspects of the practices from yesterday.
Yeah, I just focus on the team drills. I mean, obviously, I take some stock in the individual, but push comes to shove, give me the team drills over everything else. I thought Alex Leatherwood had an up-and-down day. Obviously, that's one guy we're keeping a really close eye on. I think someone that could squarely be in play at number 24 is weigh-in.
What's all this talk all of a sudden about kicking him inside? Where's that?
Yeah. Well, he started his career at right guard when they had Jonah Williams at left tackle, and then he kicked back out to left tackle. But I don't know what the compelling reason is to kick him back inside. I don't know where that's coming from.
Yeah, I didn't understand why all of a sudden. Okay, he evidently didn't have, and I thought it was notable. He didn't have the greatest of practice yesterday, right?
It was up and down.
All right, so all of a sudden now everybody wants to kick him into guard.
Right. I mean, the dude's 6'5", 312, 85-inch wingspan, 34.5 essentially inch arms. Like, I want to give this guy every chance to be my left tackle before I kick him inside the guard.
Okay. I didn't understand. Rash judgment like that because of one Senior Bowl practice. I didn't get that, but okay.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Overall impressions, again, it is just one day, and I mean, we're still trying to get familiar with some of these guys as well, but just some of the quick notes that I have in my report. This morning, I thought Leatherwood was up and down. Diante Brown, also from Alabama, I thought struggled overall. He came in heavier than expected. Came in at 364. Listed at 350. Weight's always kind of been an issue with him. Kind of lost some weight earlier in college, but I think that's just too heavy to be 364 for him. And I don't think he moves well in space. And even on some of these gap runs, he's struggling to be able to pull and get to the second level. Just overall kind of a sloppy day, which is not unexpected. I think maybe the weather was a little bit bad as well. And so there were a lot of, center quarterback exchange issues, quarterbacks taking a long time to get away from center, stuff like that. So some of that makes things sloppier, a little bit more difficult to gauge. I thought, just going through my notes here, just kind of reading them off. Wake Forest defensive lineman Carlos Basham has a quick first step, quick hands. He was able to beat Ole Miss right tackle Rice Newman on one rep. Running back Michael Carter from North Carolina is impressive. A short guy, like 5'8", 200 pounds, but good change direction, good quickness. Thought Oklahoma center Creed Humphrey and Notre Dame guard Robert Hainsey did well overall. Same with Tennessee's Trey Smith, who's just a mountain of a man, really hard to get around, but also has pretty good feet.
Now that guy's a guard. People trying to say he's a tackle, but he's not. He is a guard.
Yeah,
so
a guard.
Whatever you're reading online about Trey Smith being a tackle, that's not the case. Our own Tyler Wise has had a report on him done for a while that just went up on the site recently, and look, he in a pinch you could put him back out at tackle, but this guy is a guard at the NFL level. Period.
Yeah, 100%. And then some other guys that impressed. Wide receiver Dwayne Eskridge from Western Michigan seemed to earn a lot of buzz yesterday, especially in one-on-one drills, but even in team. His releases, his quickness, I think have been impressive. Tony Fields from West Virginia, kind of a local product. I think is a good run and hit, good diagnosed kind of guy. Some offensive linemen that seemed to impress. Dylan Raduns from North Dakota State, left tackle, 32 career starts for them. I thought did well, smaller school guy against bigger competition. That was a good day for him overall. And Cameron Bynum, the cornerback from Cal, had a good forced fumble on a slant that was caught by a receiver yesterday. And I think that's an interesting guy. He's got good size, 6 foot, 193, 4-year starter for Cal, 2-time captain. Cameron Bynum might be someone to watch. I'm not sure where his stock exactly is at. Probably somewhere earlier day 3, if I had to guess.
Boy, Felton, the kid out of UCLA, running back / wide receiver, guy that you better have a plan for. Obviously, but I tell you what was looking back quick at some of his history and how much he actually lined up in the backfield, and then watching him get off the line on some of those routes, he looked very accomplished as a route runner for someone who's not asked to do that. I don't think all that terribly much, at least from my quick research on the matter, but. I mean, you want to talk about a unique kind of chess piece in him. Now, obviously, I don't think, at least at first blush, I don't see him as a first round guy, maybe not even a second round guy. But if you're looking for a guy that potentially like a Nyheim Hines, just a guy that you can move around quite a bit, that's that kind of guy.
Yeah, he's exciting and electric, and we'll have a report on him probably going up tomorrow from Josh Carney. So we'll learn more about Dimitri Felton for sure. Probably a day 3 guy, early day 3 guy, but yeah, I think a versatile piece. And in this day and age, running backs can't be just runners; they have to catch a football too. And if you can line yourself up on a linebacker and win those matchups consistently, that is a big asset in today's NFL.
I think with this Senior Bowl, especially more so than last year, we saw the angle that the Steelers took to it because of not having a lot more info on the older players and not so much on the underclassmen. Man, you really got to take a hard look at these players at the Senior Bowl this year, especially with the way this offseason is going to go in the pre-draft process. Are teams really going to be able to get their hands on some of these players, specifically at some of these pro days? Probably not, right? So the Senior Bowl, not that it doesn't hold a lot of weight every year, especially when it comes to the Steelers. I think it really holds a lot of weight. More so this season, and I think once again you could see because of obviously how some of these programs didn't play a full season, so you didn't get a good look, several game look at a lot of these underclassmen that are coming out here. The Senior Bowl process really means a lot, obviously around the league in the pre-draft process, but really to the Steelers.
Agreed. This is the marquee draft event of the season. There is no combine. There was no shrine game. There were some smaller all-star games, but this is the big event. This is your best chance to really get to evaluate these guys. And pro days, they're going to exist, I guess, but maybe not. Tony Pauline just reported Stanford is canceling their pro day, and so we can't just assume these things are going to happen. Maybe Stanford moves it. I think that was maybe some sort of report to move it to Dallas or something, but half of these probably get canceled at some point. So it's not like you can just assume that, okay, we'll go to their pro day or see them work out there. That may not happen for a variety of reasons. So this is the week to learn. And you look at who all was at the Senior Bowl last year the Steelers drafted. Claypool. Was Highsmith there? Highsmith was at the Senior Bowl.
Well, I know Highsmith was at the at the Shrine, right? For sure.
Shrine, was he not at the Senior Bowl? I'm curious. 2020 Senior Bowl rosters. Dotson was not at the Senior Bowl, I don't think. He was at the Shrine game, I want to say.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on. I can't remember if Highsmith was an injury ad. I don't think if Highsmith was at the Senior Bowl, it was kind of a late addition. I think if he was.
Yeah, I'm not seeing Highsmith on the initial roster. Claypool was there. Dotson was not there. Is anyone else? Antoine Brooks, I think, was there. Yeah, Antoine Brooks was there.
Right. Was Carlos Davis or no?
I don't think Davis was there, no. So I guess there weren't as many players at the Senior Bowl that they drafted from, but they drafted all their picks except for McFarland were upperclassmen, and I think that was a direct relation into not having as much information on some of the underclassmen, and I think that'll be even more heightened in 2021 where you're working with even less information. So a real, even heavier focus on some of these seniors.
Yeah, look, I mean, and like I said, because of the underclassmen situation really going on 2 years now, right? Two off seasons in a row now that's going to be interrupted by the pandemic, and not. You better be sure about those underclassmen, and especially look when it comes to the Steelers anyway. they're more apt to draft an underclassman early, right? Than they are late. So if they didn't feel highly about an underclassman with their first or second round pick, odds are at that point that it's all going to be senior guys anyway from that point on. And you would really think with the way this roster is going to turn over this offseason anyway, with really kind of the success that they had in last season in getting some of these guys to instantly contribute, the guys like the Dotsons, the Highsmiths, the obviously the Claypools, that might be the route that they want to go in again, and going with the more experienced players. And then once again, because of not having a lot of information, period, you gotta really, really go through this Senior Bowl list of players with a fine-tooth comb and see which ones fit.
100% agreed. This is going to be the most difficult draft to maybe ever draft, or at least in the modern era of things. And the more information you have, the more you can watch these guys in person, the more valuable that they're going to make themselves to NFL teams. And I think that'll be the Steelers' approach again. I think you're going to see a pretty heavy, upperclassman class.
Right.
All right, Dave. Any other Senior Bowl?
How surprised will you be if either one of the Steelers' first two picks this year, assuming they stay right where they're at in both instances, in both slots there, how surprised will you be if either one of those two selections is not a Senior Bowl participant?
I'll be a little surprised. Again, I'm not going to guarantee anything because who knows how this process is going to go. But
will you guarantee that at least one will be?
I mean, guarantees are tough in draft season, but I think the odds are pretty high that one of these guys will come from Mobile for sure.
Right.
All right, Dave, any other Senior Bowl impressions or things you're looking for, or anything else that stuck out to you, big, small, otherwise?
Where's my 5 or 4 tech at?
That's what I wrote that in the post yesterday for the weigh-ins. Of the 22 guys who are listed as defensive linemen there, only 2 of them are over 300 pounds. Only 4 of them are 290 or above, and 2 of those guys are exactly at 290. There are very few guys that kind of fit that Hayward Tuitt mold.
I agree. I think you're going to have to go through with a fine-tooth comb, maybe with some of these underclassmen or some of these kind of a little bit, I think there's a kid at Cincinnati, right? Isn't there a nice-looking 4.5 tech at Cincinnati with a little bit of size on him there that would kind of fit what the Steelers do? It's going to – and it brings into question for sure, too, how many of these guys that the Steelers have – that are scheduled to be free agents, can you afford to lose, defensive end types? Look, Carlos Davis, even though you like to be able to move him around a little bit and all, you got to get him still kind of mastering, I think, that nose, tackle position more than anything there. Yeah, in his second season, you should be able to move him around. But can you really afford to lose a Tyson Alu this offseason? Can you really afford to lose, even though Chris Wormley didn't play all that much? It sure would be nice to get him back on a minimum salary contract, but what kind of draw is he going to get around the league? And even though, I wouldn't tie my wagon to playing Henry Monroe a lot of snaps. You really got to look at him being a potential depth player, maybe more so in 2021, especially if you were to not be able to re-sign a guy like Alu or Chris Wormley, right?
Yeah, I basically put Alu almost in that must re-sign category. And obviously you're not going to spend a lot of money to do it. But I think what you laid out, that was it a minimum salary benefit or a 2-year deal? What was your contract?
Yeah, it's called a 4-year benefit, 4-year player benefit, I think. But
okay.
Along the lines of a minimum salary benefit. Yeah, but it gives you a chance to pay a player more, but not eat the entire cap charge on it. You get the second.
Is that a 1-year or 2-year deal?
It's a 1-year deal, I believe.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Right.
Either way, I think you got to bring him back, and Wormley would be. I'd like to bring him back. I mean, I think Alu. I know Alu is the more important player to bring back, but if you could bring back Wormley, that would help as well. But yeah, not a lot of guys in terms of the Senior Bowl guys that would fit the closest. I would say Florida State's Marvin Wilson, although he'd probably have to lose a little bit of weight. And Texas's Taquan Graham.
He's impressive, but Wilson's impressive. He just don't have that total length to him.
Yeah, 33-inch arms. Yeah, I mean it's as good as you're going to find though at Mobile, I think. But yeah, there really is that guy that fits extremely well.
He's explosive off the ball. I did notice that. Mm-hmm. Nice arm over, kind of like a little bit smaller to it, right?
Yeah, I could see that. Wilson's got a good punch. He's got some power in his hands for sure. I don't know. Is he as athletic as
I don't know if he has the hips. So nobody has the hips that Tuitt has. But just in looking at some of those reps from the Senior Bowl, he was impressed. But he strikes me more as a kind of a 3-tech in a 4-man front.
Yeah, and he's probably going to be a pretty early day 2 pick. So I don't think he's really going to be in a position where the Steelers will be able to take him.
But go real quick back to Wormley. Sort of a situation the Steelers had with Alu after his first really is kind of his first full contract that he had signed with the Steelers, and really to some degree the re-up that they did with him. Kevin Colbert's not one that unless he can get a guy for a minimum salary benefit type situation that comes with the reduced cap hit. Kevin Colbert's not one to sign these guys to 1-year contracts for the $3 or $4 million, and definitely not this offseason with the cap situation this team has. So, maybe we hear something. Mark this, carve this part of the podcast out and save it for when I'm right here in a couple weeks. It's a great time. Look, you want to look smart with a guy like Chris Wormley. It already looks kind of questionable trading for him, even though you didn't really have to give up a lot. But the amount that you paid him over $2 million in 2020 to get kind of the minimal return that you got out of him. Now, he did miss time with an injury and yada yada. And when he did come back, he had some good snaps in there, especially in one game later in the season there. Now's the perfect opportunity to re-sign him to a 2-year deal that similar to maybe that you gave Alu a few years ago, that in turn would reduce Chris Wormley's first-year cap charge in 2021, right? So I could really see in the next 7 weeks here some way, form, fashion, however, of them re-upping Chris Wormley and Tyson Alu, and that in turn would put a lot less onus on trying to find, which it doesn't seem like there's going to be a large group of the kind of those defensive end types, 4 or 5 techs that the Steelers like to look for anyway in this year's draft. Why not keep your own in that situation? And then dedicate your early draft capital, especially your early draft capital, to offensive positions and maybe an inside linebacker position or something like that.
I agree. I think that's a really good strategy. Basically, if you did both those things, you brought both those players back, you won't have to draft a defensive lineman because you'll have those guys, and hopefully, Carlos Davis takes a step forward, Henry Mondeau takes a step forward, maybe Bugs, the light comes on for him. I'm not really sure at this point, but I don't think you'd have to draft somebody, or maybe you just take a flyer in the 7th round with one of those couple 7th round picks they have. But you would not need to address the position really early at all if you bring back both those guys.
What do you think is the likelihood of them bringing back at least one of those two, Alu and Wormley, versus what do you think the likelihood of them bringing both of them back with? And obviously, it would have to happen probably within the next 7 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the odds are high that one of those guys comes back because they're going to be cheap and they're just, especially Alu, just a position of importance that would be a big need if you don't do that. The odds of both obviously are lower. I don't know how low it would be. I think the odds of one coming back are 80-20 in terms of in favor of one coming back. In terms of both coming back, it might be 50-50 kind of deal.
I was more apt to have Tyson Alu be the only guy of those two that they bring back. But after looking at this draft class and all, why not stick with what what you really have over $2 million invested in already, and once again, Wormley not so great at the beginning of the season. Then had what was it, the knee injury or the ankle injury? But he did play better upon returning from that, I thought. So and obviously his market value is going to be kind of capped right now anyway. To me, it just screams of re-signing this guy to a 2-year deal, giving him enough money in the first year of that deal that keeps other teams away from him, and yet if you needed to move on from him from the Steelers aspect after the first year, you could do so. So I am now, after looking kind of taking a deeper dive at the draft class, especially at the defensive end position and what the Steelers normally look for. I think there's probably a pretty strong possibility that they keep both Alu and Wormley in the next 7 weeks.
Yeah, I would wholly endorse that. So keep an eye on that. And again, any other final Senior Bowl thoughts, positions of intrigue, interest, something you're looking for on day 2?
Tell me about the Ohio State off-the-ball linebacker.
Who's that? Tough Borland.
Is that the one that's getting a little bit of buzz down there?
I'm not sure. I think the Tough Borland is the guy you're talking about. He came in small. I mean, he's not related to Chris Borland, by the way. People think that he's related to the former Wisconsin linebacker. I don't know a whole lot about him, but on just kind of first glance, and his profile kind of is that special teamer, thumper, running back, probably not going to do great in space, but I haven't spent much time on Tough Borland.
More of a later round guy?
Yeah, I think, especially how big is he? He came in at like 6 foot, 6'1", 230 something. He's probably going to be a day 3 guy.
Okay.
All right, so we'll keep you posted on Senior Bowl day 2, and just try to keep track of things the best we can. Obviously, this year's a little bit challenging. Last night, I should note on Landon Dickerson, who I love his tape from Alabama, but I knew that length was going to hurt him. At 6'6", but only 32.5-inch arms. But definitely a little T-Rexy for a guy that's 6'6". But for a center, I guess the length matters less. But still, you like to have the length, and he does not have it. And he's got the medical concerns, which is the long part of his resume, which is not something you want because he's got a lot he's dealing with.
Are we dealing with potentially another kind of Tyler Biadasz situation here with him?
From a medical standpoint, or from a length standpoint?
Tyler had a little bit longer arms, though, didn't he?
I think. I'm not. I don't remember exactly what his profile was. He was shorter for sure. I think maybe shorter with maybe slightly better length. But yeah, Dickerson has a lot of medical stuff. So the tape is great. The tape is fantastic. I love Dickerson on the field, but medical is going to be the thing that we're not going to be able to gauge and judge how teams view him.
You looking for initial kind of thoughts coming out of the Senior Bowl, 3rd, 4th round on him then?
Well, I think he's got almost first-round talent, second-round talent for sure. I think the medical pushes him down into round 3. But all it takes is one team to clear medically, and if you clear medically, then he could go top 50.
Right. Okay.
All right. And tight ends, I didn't see a lot. Hunter Long made one nice catch. Kylan Granson's definitely an H-back, but tight end group at the Senior Bowl, not too strong.
And overall, trying to find anything other than move tight ends now is tough, right?
Yeah, I did a report yesterday or 2 days ago on Tony Poljan, the tight end from Virginia. I mean, and he kind of felt like the Steelers, 6'7", 265, former quarterback, still learning the position. He was a quarterback halfway through his college career, but a very stiff, rigid athlete. I think a red zone threat for sure. I mean, he caught a lot of touchdowns in his career, but not someone I view as a number 1 tight end.
Okay. Who is the top tight end down there, in your opinion, in Mobile?
In Mobile? I'm not even sure, to be honest. It might be Hunter Long from Boston College, the Ole Miss kid potentially, but there isn't, Fryer Moose not down there, Pitts isn't down there, Brevin Jordan's not down there. I think those are almost all underclassmen, so there really isn't one of the cream of the crop tight ends down there.
All right.
Mel Kiper Jr. also had his first mock draft yesterday. I think it was his first 2021 mock draft, and he is mocking a defensive player to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Tulsa linebacker Zaven Collins, 24th overall. And in Kiper's explanation of the pick, it seems like he forgot that Alex Highsmith exists because he was talking about how the team needs to replace Bud Dupree at outside linebacker. I agree they need to add edge depth there, but I'm not spending 24th pick on the position. Although, to be fair, as some people told me after the fact, Collins is kind of more of a hybrid linebacker, can play some off-ball linebacker as well, so he wouldn't in reality probably be strictly an edge rusher, but I still think this pick makes a lot of sense for the Steelers.
Boy, name recognition with Mel Kiper has really outlived it all, hasn't it? You look, it's easy to knock on the guy, I think, but after all these years, but man, more so than ever, looking at, especially at this, does he even do his homework? Does he even know that the Steelers, how the Steelers actually use their outside linebackers, and he obviously forgot or doesn't know that Alex Highsmith is over there. And then on top of it there, how much tape has he actually watched on Lavon Collins? On top of it, it really makes you wonder. Just initial read, and I had not watched. Full disclosure, up until yesterday, I had not watched any film on Lavon Collins. But as soon as obviously a guy like Mel Kiper Jr. in the name recognition releases a mock draft with having this kid go to the Steelers at 24th overall, you better get down into the film really quick and learn about these. And that, if there's anything that came out of it, I learned a lot about this kid just in yesterday alone, just by Mel Kiper putting him, mocking him to the Steelers in the first round. Now, Josh Carney I think already had a profile up, so I went and looked at that real quick there, and then I messaged Josh Carney too real quick to get a quick question. My quick question was, okay, where did this kid line up mostly at? Is he a true edge, or was he used off the ball more? And Josh informed me that he's more of an off the ball guy, and then you start reading up on him, and then you look at his measurables alone. Not that you can judge a guy just purely on his measurables based on what the Steelers do, but you look at him at his pure measurables alone. 6'4", 260 pounds is what he's listed at on the Tulsa website there. How many off the ball inside linebackers have the Steelers had play for them that were 6'4", 260 pounds? And if so, how far back do you have to go to find one?
Lavon Kirkland, probably. He's an interesting guy. He seems explosive, and if he's versatile and if he can move well 260, then more power to him. But it was even weirder because, Collins can play off ball, and that's not even referenced in Kiper's report. So if he was like, what is Kiper even seeing here in terms of the fit and Collins' position? It was just a very weird analysis.
Now, here's the thing. You get into his film, you do see some instances where they used him off the edge, okay?
Sure.
So he does have that in his resume, but it's not what he does. It's not who he is. Now, I will say this about for 6'4", 260, this guy is one of those Planet Theory guys, right? Mm-hmm. One of those guys that, man, he can move. Now, unfortunately, I was limited to just the highlights right now of him. So you get to see all the great plays with him, and there's a lot of them. This guy can move downhill in a hurry. He can shoot gaps. It looks like he reads and reacts well. Good ball awareness. Drops. You see him drop off of the line into zone coverages, and even maybe occasionally in some man situations there. Kind of a jack of all, middle of the field, off the ball specimen there. What he is not, though, is he is not a true outside linebacker edge, okay? Let's get that out of the way right now with Mel Kiper. Now, could you maybe, because of, you look at him just from a measurable standpoint, 6'4", 260 pounds, you think, oh, yeah, that guy's an edge, man. That guy's a perfect edge, for the Steelers here. But within that, he was not asked to do. It's not what he was asked to do. Consistently rush the passer, rush the passer off the edge there. This guy is an off the ball linebacker at the NFL level, and dare I say, he's probably more of a Sam at the NFL level, in more of a 4-3 front, 43 front, if you will. That's the takeaway that I got. And obviously I have not looked at how he is about blowing up, play in, play out kind of plays. I have not looked at full games on him. Once again, I've only looked at the highlights. He's impressive. Don't get me wrong. And you look at the 90-something yard return for a touchdown that he had. That guy could get down the field. So he's going to probably test extremely well, especially for a guy at 6'4", 260. But even if the Steelers were to look at Collins in the draft, I don't think it would be 24th overall. And I don't think it would be as an edge. I think it would be as an off-the-ball linebacker, inside linebacker, more of a buck kind of linebacker, even though the Steelers kind of like to use their guys interchangeable.
It's not the direction I'd probably go, but you could make a case for Zayvon Collins to be an inside linebacker, hybrid type guy in Pittsburgh with that pick. Some people were telling me a good comp is Dante Hightower. Some people mentioned a Lawrence Timmons kind of deal, although Timmons was smaller coming out. But just Kuiper's argument in itself, it doesn't even seem to reference the off-ball ability. It's just a bad argument to make in favor of the selection. So, and it's tough to stomach another defensive pick after all the needs that exist on offense, on the offensive line, the run game in general. So, yeah, I think you can make an argument to have Collins be the guy. I just think Kuiper makes a really terrible argument to support the pick there.
Yeah, and once again, if he is the guy, it's to go inside, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could probably play both. I don't know if I put him into a box, would be on third down, some situational pass rush situations. He could probably play the edge as he did at Tulsa, but I think he's probably would be more primarily an off-ball linebacker.
Right, and I view him more. Once again, I view him more as a 4-3 guy. I mean, he's going to be a sparky dude, I think, based on height and just on raw measurables alone. And once again, you look at his highlight tape alone. That guy could go point A to point B, for sure. But once again, I have not looked at him play in, play out. But I'll tell you what he's not right now is he's not a 3-4 outside linebacker in the Steelers system. Period.
Fair enough. All right, Dave. Any other just draft thoughts or anything else that you've done? Kind of winding down the show here. I didn't know if you had anything else you've been working on or anything that you've reviewed so far.
I wrote, I'm going to do this in stages. I'm going to do it. I've got a series that I started on, what was yesterday? Tuesday, a salary cap primer series for the Steelers, for 2021. Unfortunately, this is going to be, it's going to be hard to pinpoint a lot of things because we're, not knowing exactly what the league-wide salary cap number will be. Obviously, that's something we've talked about for quite a while now. Will it be $175 million? Will it be $180 million? Will it be $185 million? Will it be $198.2 million? I don't think anybody knows. So having such a big moving target like that, it makes it kind of hard to kind of pinpoint. But I will tell people this right now, and this is still current really as of yesterday on top of it there. Not including any of the upcoming offseason costs. What I wanted to do is I wanted to take an exact snapshot of where the team is right now today and then go over kind of the forthcoming costs that the team will face in the next 7 weeks here prior to the start of the new league year in March. And once again, I understand, yes, this team is going to have draft class displacement cost after the start of the new league year. Obviously, they're going to have to afford a practice squad. They're going to have to be able to afford a 52nd and 53rd player on the roster. They're going to have a good probably $9 to $10 million in excess cap space, which is even hard to imagine right now. But I mean, the team has got a history of and especially with all the moves, you still have a pandemic going on to some degree, and needing a 16-man practice squad and making those kind of moves and injury-related moves, you're going to have at least $9 million in reserve and cap space there. But just focusing on getting this team to the new league year and getting them cap compliant is what this series of posts is going to be. And hopefully I laid out things like the exclusive look. Tender, and we covered this just recently in the segment when we talked about the exclusive free agents or exclusive rights free agents that this team has. The list is not long, right? It's Robert Spillane, Marcus Allen, and J.C. Hassenauer. The shape that this roster is in right now, you can tender all three of those guys at the minimum, and they have to accept it, and you only use up $500,000 in cap costs there. So that's a no-brainer, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right, now where you get into a little bit of the question marks is with these restricted free agents, Ray McLeod and Ola Denier. Do you really want to pay those guys $2.24 million? No, you really don't. Now, can you potentially give a guy like Ray McLeod $2.24 million in 2021 as part of a 2-year deal and then have his cap number less? Absolutely, you could do that, and I would not be surprised if that's the way that they went with Ray. Although I would not be shocked just the same if they let him see what's out there in free agency there. But if you want a surefire, what is your overall thoughts on Ray McCloud? Should he be re-signed? Period.
Yeah, I want to bring him back. I just don't want to bring him back on that 1 year, $2.4 million deal. I want to find a different way to do it.
Right. So obviously the best way to do that would be either get him to sign for the minimum, which I think he would be at least doing himself a disservice by not exploring free agency to some degree, or you sign this kid to a 2-year deal, give him enough signing bonus that keeps him away from free agency, yet keeps his cap hit in 2021 low.
Which is what I would prefer. I think I'd rather do the latter of those two options.
And Ola, would you do the same with him?
No, I wouldn't do the 2-year with him. I would just say you'll take a 1-year deal for the minimum or just about, or you're going to walk, because I don't think he'll have nearly as robust of a market. Not that Ray would have a great market, but McCloud would have a bigger market than a Daney. And I think Ola can come back for the cheaper. He can just keep walking.
All right, so there's ways to deal with these restricted free agents. Potentially have both of them back and it not kill you from a cap perspective. We agree on that, right?
Agreed.
All right, now where the real question comes in, obviously, is with the unrestricted free agents, and a lot of that's going to depend on what the league-wide salary cap is. Look, I mean, more than half of these guys you can rule out returning anyway, correct? You know, the Bud Duprees, where are you at on Matt Filer returning now?
I'm not sure. I'm just trying to gauge his market. I'm not going to totally close that door if you re-sign him, kick him back out to right tackle. But
let me phrase the question a better way. What guys of the 19 players, unrestricted free agents that this team is scheduled to have, name the ones that you think have at least a small prayer of being re-signed during the offseason. We already talked about two of them, in Tyson Alualu and Chris Wormley, right?
Yeah, I think both those guys have good chances coming back. I still like Cam Sutton's odds of being able to be re-signed. I mean, a lot of these guys have a chance. I mean, Juju has a chance to come back, so I put him in that category of the way you're asking the question.
Fair enough.
Who else? I think Filer would still have a chance. Again, I'm not saying all these guys are going to come back. You can only pick maybe 2 or 3, depending on what 2 of those 2 and 3 are.
Banner.
Yeah, Banner. I mean, if you want to get into the real, lower end guys, Banner for sure. Hawkins, is Hawkins a free agent?
Yes.
Right. Hawkins has a chance to come back. So again, not that every single one of those guys I mentioned will come back, but those are the guys. Like Dupree's gone, Connor's gone. I think Villanueva's gone. I mean, those ones are in the really realistic chance of returning camp.
All right, everybody telling me that the Steelers need to get Bud Dupree re-signed.
His rehab's going well. He said his rehab's going great.
Yeah, he was on Good Morning Football this morning. I wrote about that this morning. He seems to think that he'll be ready for the start of training camp. He didn't say which training camp. And
well, hopefully it's
and I think we both kind of agree that it'd be surprising if it's the Steelers, right?
Agreed.
All right. So anyway, what do you think about that series? The first post in that series, is that the right way to go with this?
Yeah, I think it's good to chunk it and kind of take it in steps and pieces. That's probably the best way to approach it. And you're right. It's difficult to gauge until you know what that cap number is going to be. And it's not that, we're talking about, is it going to be, 198 or 197? We're saying, could it be 198 or could it be 175? You just have that big disparity there that would be world changing in terms of what your moves can and can't be. And that's what makes gauging the situation just so difficult.
All right. Tell us a little bit more about Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah, it was a guy in my mock draft that I had in the second round, which I know some people got on me for it being too high, but I think he'd be a good fit for a Matt Canada-led system where he's going to be someone that can work in space on, the short pass game, the screen game, jet plays, perimeter plays, things like that, can be split out as a receiver. I mean, a pretty accomplished guy, 51 receptions in 2019, a big playability type guy. The speed isn't elite. I think he's a low 4.4s kind of guy, but still dynamic kind of weapon the Steelers haven't really had. And yes, people will say, well, you had McFarland, and I have not given up on Anthony McFarland, but McFarland's presence alone is not going to prevent me from investing heavily in the position. But a guy that was really productive, that I think has good vision, a downhill guy, Yes, Memphis used a lot of zone schemes, but they also ran some gap as well. So it wasn't just the zone schemes that they ran over there with the Tigers. I think he'd be at least on paper a good fit for this offense.
Okay. And you went deeper. That you went deeper than ahead of your. In other words, you did that evaluation after your mock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I looked at him some before the mock, but then I went to the deep dive player profile last night actually, and then did the report for this morning.
All right, good deal. What did you think about Asante? I've gotten old. Asante Samuel Jr. is now about to be in the NFL. PFF mocked him, and I've just watched very, very little on him. But what did you think about PFF mocking Florida State cornerback Asante Samuel Jr. 24th overall to the Steelers?
Will he be someone that could play in the slot? Because I have not watched much on Samuel Jr.
I have not watched much on him either to be able to say for sure if that's something that fits into his skill set.
Yeah, probably not going to be the pick if it's anything like his dad. I mean, his dad was a great ball hawk and could not tackle to save his life. I mean, the Steelers system and scheme has evolved, so I don't know, but probably not the guy. Again, focus has to be on offense. I expect the focus to be on offense this year.
And that's one thing that we've stated consistently, I think. And at this point, I would be shocked if they go anything other than offense with their first 2 picks. And really, you could make a strong argument that the first 3 picks need to be all offensive players. But at a minimum, I think both of us are to the point where at least with the first round pick, we could maybe to some certainty narrow it down to it being an offensive player.
Yeah, that is my assumption, especially if a Marquise Pouncey were to retire. That would just create another big vacancy along the offensive line. I think we'll finally see the streak of first-round defensive picks end the season.
Especially if they're able to re-up a guy like Sutton or Hilton. Let me ask you, what are you doing with how much twisting of the arm would it take for you to suggest that the team cut either Joe Hayden or Steven Nelson in the next 7 weeks?
In order to do what would be my question. And most people will say cut Hayden to re-sign Sutton.
You put the back end of it on there because obviously with the cap situation, the uncertainty with the overall number, could play a large part in that. Versus 175 million, just in raw talent alone versus what you would expect maybe to get in the draft, and maybe what you would expect for this team to be able to re-sign their own free agents, in the next 7 weeks. How much arm twisting would it take for you to suggest that the team cut either or both?
Well, I have no appetite to cut Steven Nelson. I'm not sure what he's done to deserve being cut. If anything, I want to try to extend Steven Nelson. I think he's played really well these 2 seasons in Pittsburgh. Hayden, I mean, you could make a case for it, but I'm still not crazy about that. Most people do say, cut Hayden to re-sign Sutton. And A, I think you can still re-sign Sutton without having to cut Joe Hayden. And B, even if you did, I mean, if Sutton's going to replace Hayden on the outside, you still have to replace somebody in the slot because now Hilton's gone, Sutton's your left cornerback. And so, I mean, have you gotten better as a team? Maybe a little. I guess you can argue that Sutton's better than Cam Hayden or than Joe Hayden. I think Hayden's better versus the run. I think Sutton's better in coverage. I guess push comes to shove, Sutton might be the better player overall. But how much better have you really gotten marginally, if any? And so I think you're just kind of moving the chairs on the Titanic at that point. So I think I don't really have a real big appetite to cut either Hayden or Nelson, especially not Steven Nelson.
Me either. And one of the things that I put on here's the thing, man. So many people get the cap stuff wrong, and so many people on Twitter putting numbers out there that are just wrong, man. Do not. People look at Joe Hayden and say, Joe Hayden, look at his Joe Hayden's not worth $15.575 million in 2021. Well, here's a little tidbit for you if you listen to this. Joe Hayden's not making $15.575 million in 2021. That's his cap number. Joe Hayden is scheduled to make $7 million, period, in 2021. Do not attach cap numbers and value to to a player. The value of the player is what the player is scheduled to earn. All right. I see so many people do that and say you got to cut him because of 15.575. No, if you cut him, it's because you don't think he's worth $7 million, because that's the number. Also with Steven Nelson, kind of the same situation there. Oh man, $14.42 million he's due. No, he's not due $14.42 million. He's due $8.25 million. All right. So if you see, you need to start, if you want the flow of information to be better out there, you need to start correcting these people that are throwing this bad information. I try my best, but they ignore me to the most part there. So it's going to take a group effort to kind of do this. So look, when it comes to guys specifically, let's look at Steven Nelson, Alex. If you were to extend him, what would an extension kind of look like for Steven Nelson? At best, I think a comparison would be his own teammate, Joe Hayden, a couple years ago when he did the extension there, a new money average of $11 million. If you were to extend Steven Nelson this offseason, are you going, is he worth more than $11 million per season? Period. That's question number one I have for you.
Yeah, I think he probably is, just given the going rate for cornerbacks. I don't think that's an astronomical number to give Steven Nelson.
All right, how much more than $11 million are you willing to give Steven Nelson? If Joe Hayden is at you got to remember the Steelers' history on this kind of stuff too. All right, in other words, how big of eyebrows is Joe Hayden going to raise if Steven Nelson's new extension leapfrogs him by?
I don't think any. I mean, that's the natural progression of things. Because Hayden signed it when,
2019.
Yeah, so next guy usually gets paid more. I mean, that's how it works. And
how much more is Steven Nelson worth than $11 million per season? Because I draw the line at $11 million.
All right, yeah, I mean, I think that sounds about right. If you want to bump it up a little bit just to say he's getting more. I mean, just again, the progression of things, that's fine. I'm not going to go much more than that. No, nothing over 12, but that seems 11 to 12 million seems like a good range.
All right, people will willy-nilly. I see guys in the Athletic do it, not naming any names, but along with people that pretend to know the cap in contracts more than they actually do. Steven Nelson is still due that $8.25 million in 2021. That doesn't magically go away as part of an extension. That's got to be included with the other new money in the extension there. A lot of people get that so wrong. What I'm getting at here is if you were to give Steven Nelson a 2-year extension, and give him $11 million new money average, you're not going to be, because of what he's due already in 2021 and what you'd have to give him as a total amount of cash flow in 2021. Just a regular 2-year extension is not going to lower his cap number as much as many people think it will. All right, so you may be looking at, I don't know, $2 or $3 million, maybe being able to be saved there, but not much more than that. All right. So, and now look, could you do something with here's something that might be in the picture here. Could you do a normal, as far as the economics and the cash flow and the new money average goes, could you do a 2-year the amounts of a 2-year extension with Steven Nelson, yet add on another 2 voidable years on top of it that allows you to take that big signing bonus that you had to give him and stretch it out another 2 years instead of 3 years in total, stretch it out to 5 years in total? Is that potentially an option here? And I think the answer to that is yes, because Nelson makes out by getting basically what amounts to really a 2-year extension. Okay, he gets all the perks of the new money and the cash flow that come along with that, but on top of it, you're able to stretch out that cap hit a little bit further, and he's not tied to you for the full what would on paper technically be a 4-year extension. He's only tied to you for 2 more years on top of it. I think that's the way that you kind of look at this thing with a guy like Nelson and potentially a guy like David DeCastro, assuming that you want to extend him. On paper, it's a 4-year extension, but in reality, it's just a 2-year extension. See where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I do, and that would be something I could approach him with. I don't know how players would feel about the voidable years, but maybe you can make it work if you just explain the situation to him.
I think what you do to help both ends there is you put in what would technically, I guess, be the 4th year is you put, not only is it voidable, but you could language it up where a huge roster bonus is due that March, where
you would have to void it.
Right, you'd either have to void it or the player gets paid big time off of it.
Because the player's concern would be, well, what happens if you guys decide, you keep me instead if you don't want to void the contract, and that would be the concern. Yes, you'd have to have some sort of mechanism to basically guarantee that. So that makes sense. And yeah, to me, it's extending Nelson's less about saving on the cap, although that'd be one benefit, even if it's small. But just Nelson, I think, is worthy of an extension. I think he's played well enough to earn an extension. So if you can keep a player locked up for a little bit longer and save a little bit of cap space, then I think it's just a win-win.
Ideally, this is another part of the podcast people should trim out here. I ideally think that if you did something on paper, which would look like a 2-year extension with $11 million new money average, really almost identical to what Joe Hayden got in 2019, yet made that thing a 4-year extension, just for the sheer fact that you'd add 2 more voidable years in there, just to help from a salary cap perspective. There, I think that's something that would be not only good for the player and Steven Nelson, but it would be good for the Steelers too, because obviously you'd be able to trim off the cap number a little bit more than you would obviously in a normal 2-year extension there. So I think that's something that people really need to consider here. All right, within that. Let me bring this back to you again. Do you think the Steelers will sign Steven Nelson to an extension? I won't put by March 17th in there, but ideally, I think if one were to happen, you'd probably want to do it by then, especially if the cap number comes in $175 million.
Yeah.
But just in general, between now and the start of the regular season, do you believe that Steven Nelson will sign a contract extension?
I don't know, Dave. That's a good question. There's nothing in my gut that's telling me yes, it's going to happen, but I'm all for it. I'm not opposed to it one bit.
I'm not either. I think that's something that's going to happen. I won't be shocked if it happens in the next 7 weeks. Now, Joe Hayden. Do you do any kind of extension, new money extension with Joe Hayden, or is the only kind of extension you're interested in with Joe Hayden the kind that's really just, false? You're just going to get all voidable. In other words, give him the money he's due this year. That's it, but just make it voidable.
Yeah, I'm not giving him any new money, and I think more realistically, maybe you can do a voidable year if he's okay with that, but I think more likely they just do nothing with Joe Hayden in 2021's his last season.
The only other thing that maybe you could do is pay Joe Hayden a little bit more money on top of what he's, in other words, make it worth his while to do the 4-year extension with all voidable years. In other words,
bonus in there.
Right. Give him give him the amount that he's already due in there, plus let's say another. He's due $7 million this season. So you gave him let's say you gave him $9 million, and then you turn, nearly all of that into a signing bonus. So he's still getting it. It just allows you to stretch it out over 5 years and thus lower his cap number. You'd be okay with maybe giving him up to, in other words, let him earn at least, let's say, up to $9 million in 2021 if it meant being able to lower his cap hit some. Would you be up for that?
Yeah, but then you're getting dead money in the next couple of years, right?
Sure. You're creating. Yeah. You're instantly creating a can that cannot be kicked in 2022.
All right. So I'm more open to that, I guess, but I think I'd rather just do nothing with it.
Okay. Now,
unless I had to. Obviously, we'll see what the cap number direction takes us.
Now, granted, now with the Steven Nelson example that I gave, if you added the two more, you're automatically creating a kick the can situation for him in what would be 2024, right? 2021, 23, yeah, it'd be 2024. But I mean that's way down the road there, and by that point, I mean, how big a can is it? A dead money can to be kicked at that point. It's a lot different than it would be in Joe Hayden, where you're instantly creating, I don't know, $4 million in dead money situation on him automatically in 2022.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think the voidable years you just do if you have to for the bigger guys, for the ones where you're going to save the most amount of money. Ben obviously be the one guy to circle where that would be most impactful. Not saying it will happen, but that's where you don't want to do that to every single guy as your catch-all. So I think overall, Nelson you extend or do nothing, and Hayden I think you just do nothing with.
What about DeCastro?
Yeah, DeCastro's weirder. I'm not.
I think it comes down to, does he want to play?
Right. Well, let's assume that he does. I mean, I know there was a couple comments he made, but I don't know. I still have a feeling he wants to keep playing. My kind of thought is you just let him play out this season and just see was the 2020 DeCastro were his struggles a product of injury or just a product of him being 31 years old and kind of declining a little bit. I think maybe you just let this thing play out. But again, it is dependent on where the cap comes in at and what steps you have to take to get compliant based on that cap number.
If you did let him play out, then you're looking at obviously the franchise tag next offseason to retain him. Is that something that you'd be interested in doing?
Potentially, or we start thinking about who's going to replace David DeCastro. I mean, this line's not going to be around forever, and if 2021 is the swan song for these guys, Pouncey, DeCastro, Ben, then you may just start going full rebuild and just say, well, we're not going to re-sign DeCastro or tag him for 2022 because we are in rebuilding this thing mode. And so we're not going to have that kind of money invested in a guy that's not going to be here for a whole lot longer after that.
And I think the best case scenario with DeCastro here in the next 7 weeks could fall in line with the best case or with a possible scenario with Steven Nelson here, and once again, dependent on where this cap number comes in at, I think I think on the table should be some sort of a 2-year on paper extension for DeCastro at fair market value. Obviously, cash flow would have to be strong for DeCastro to consider it. Just as would be the case with Steven Nelson. In fact, those two are real close with what they're scheduled to earn. So the two deals would probably look very, very similar to each other. But they basically be 2-year extensions, but be 4-year extensions because of the back 2 years of the deal be voidable. So you see what I'm saying? So in other words, you'd be able to stretch out whatever signing bonus you gave each of them, Nelson and DeCastro, over the 5-year period instead of the 3-year period, but yet those players are only locked in as if it was a 2-year extension.
Yeah, that would make sense too. So I'm not mad if they extend DeCastro, but I'm kind of okay with also just doing nothing if that's possible with DeCastro.
You're not going to say, look, we've already talked about the two things you can count on happening is Stephon Tuitt and Cameron Hayward having contract restructures done. Okay.
Right.
We'll see whatever the heck's going to happen with Ben and Ben's contract. You would think that they would do something there, somehow, some way, and then outside of that, really, if you're looking at extensions before March 17th, I think you're really down to 2 guys. I think you're down to, in true extensions, would be Steven Nelson and David DeCastro.
Yeah, I think so. Just with DeCastro in terms of true extensions, do you want to give a 31-year-old coming off a pretty poor season an extension? I don't know if you want to do that unless you really have to.
Right. I mean, but if you think you can get 2 more years out of them and you can get the benefits of a nice deduction in cap charge, I think that DeCastro is sort of like a go between the Steven Nelson and Joe Hayden situation.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to frame it.
That team has. But look, the way the team did restructure DeCastro's contract last offseason, though, really leads one to believe that they did so with the idea of extending him this offseason. So
yeah, but I don't think anyone saw his 2020 season struggles the way they were. And again, could that be injury? Certainly, but
right.
you want to give it the year. I don't know. We'll see. But again, to me, these are all important exercises. But until we know what that cap number is, I mean, these are all moves that are thought independently. And I think you have to just wait till the cap number comes in and say, okay, what are the 5 or 6 steps we have to do to get cap compliant? And those are the steps you take, and that'll create your roadmap. And so that's the only thing that matters to me right now.
All right, but obviously something where these next 7 weeks are going to move quick. So.
I think so. All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, let's see what we have here. Pull up the arm length from George Harris. Hey, fellas, George in Virginia here. Creed Humphrey measured in with shorter arms at the Senior Bowl, 31 3/4 inches. I get the idea of longer arms being a advantageous to linemen, but what exactly does it mean having short arms as a center?
Well, just the same it matters for anybody, and especially in a day and age where defensive linemen move all over the front, and it's not that Cam Hayward just plays at the 5 tech and he's only matched up against offensive tackles. He's going to be matched up against guards, even occasionally centers, based on slanting and looping and stunts in games and things like that. So it's really just about creating space. Length creates space, and that's really important, especially in pass pro. For example, as a defensive lineman, your goal is to eat up that space between you and your offensive lineman. So when you make your move and you shed, you can dip past and the offensive lineman can't recover. If there's no space between you guys, you're going to have a much better chance to finish that move as a defensive lineman than you will if there is space between you guys. And so when you lack that length, it is a concern. Now, it's less a concern for an interior guy to have poor length than an offensive tackle. I get that, but length is still important. And it's not that Humphrey just has average length where it's like 32 3/4, 33. That's fine. It's 31. I mean, that is below average. That is a real low end kind of length for a guy that's 6'4" too, for a tall guy overall. So that's where you get not that you're going to not draft him because of that, but that is something to consider.
So you're saying that he might have to have somebody feed him.
You and the T-Rex.
The guy's tape is impressive. At least in a little bit that I've watched, he's a mauler. But I mean, are we talking? I mean, those are some short arms, man.
Right. Yeah. It's not that if they were 32 and like I said, 32 3/4, 33, you'd pay no mind, even if it was a little below average. But this is, I mean, how many guys with 31-inch arms have succeeded in the NFL? Some, but not a lot.
This one from Lance Crow, just an FYI, I lived down the road from Pouncey, and there was a large moving truck and lots of helpers at his home yesterday. Certainly didn't want to post this in an open forum, blah, blah, blah. We'll see. I mean, who knows why someone might be moving. Yeah, I mean, if indeed that's true, we'll see. At this point, I mean, obviously I won't be shocked either way it goes with Marquise Pouncey, but man, I know the reports are kind of to the contrary overall out there, and the perceptions to the contrary. My gut wants me to think that Pouncey's coming back for 2021.
Yeah, I know we mentioned that Ben's going to get in his ear and convince him to do one last ride with him, but we'll see. Like I said on Monday's show, whenever it was, I think this thing's up in the air.
Jeff Berg, Dwayne versus Dobbs versus Duck. I mean, it really seems like a crazy question, Jeff, but we'll try to answer it here. Was wondering in what order you'd rank these 3 quarterbacks: Dwayne Haskins, Joshua Dobbs, and Duck Hodges. I don't know what good you get out of that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really have any strong feelings either way with how you want to rank them. So I mean, Dobbs barely ever really got into game action in terms of regular season action for the Steelers. And a lot of these guys' careers were just starting out. So I don't even know how I would rank them.
I think Haskins got to be ranked at top just because of the upside, maybe alone.
Well, yeah, I mean, is the question like based on previous performance or like future performance? I'm not even sure what the scope of the ranking's supposed to be.
I don't know.
I mean, in terms of what they've done, I would go, I guess, Duck, Haskins, Dobbs, but you can order them however you want to order them.
Yeah, Jeff, I'll rank them Haskins, Dobbs, Duck. How's that? I don't know what we just accomplished there.
Very little.
2021 NFL Draft. Roland Saucier writes it. David Alex, happy business season to both of you. As you, I am very sad the Steelers season is over, but it's time to get work to making our team better. I've always loved the draft, and this season is no different. We all know this team's priority will be to upgrade the offensive line with Pouncey possible retirement and the way the Steelers prioritize the center position. Could that be our first-round pick in 2021? I guess that's his first question. I guess the short answer to that is yeah, it could be.
Absolutely.
Second, offensive line appears to be strong group this year. Of these three centers, Creed Humphrey, Landon Dickerson, and Josh Myers, how would you rank them? And are there any of them first round worthy? Personally, I'm not ready to answer that question to where I am in the tape study. I would be doing listeners a disservice to answer that question as framed right there.
Yeah, I probably would too. I think Humphrey would have the most consideration for round one consideration. Dickerson might have had he not had the medical. He's the guy that I've watched the closest so far. So Humphrey's probably your most likely guy, and Dickerson is more in that round 2, round 3 based on medical.
And Josh Myers, have you watched anything on him? I haven't.
Really nothing, so I couldn't give you much insight on Myers right now.
Also, I'm a little concerned that we haven't hired an offensive line coach yet. I, too, remember the Jack Bignell days. Dave, you mentioned Paul Alexander on Monday's show. I remember him from his Bengal days. Any chance the Steelers would reach out to him? Short answer, is there a chance? Probably. I don't know any more about really Paul Alexander's situation than what he puts out there on Twitter right now. Seems like he got a pretty good gig going, and I don't even know that he wants to get back in the NFL coaching at this point. I just think from an older, grittier, technical type coach, from what I know of him in the past, he would be a good choice. But as far as him possibly being the guy, I don't know.
Yeah, he's just one of 100 names you could throw out there. There's just no other name mentioned. It's been Hank Fraley's the only name that's been mentioned for the O-line vacancy. He went back to Detroit, and so I have zero idea who even a candidate is going to be, let alone who the hire is going to be. And they're at the Senior Bowl, so they should probably figure this out.
Right. The Chargers guy, I think, is looking for work now as well too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forget his name, but he's been a long-time veteran coach, so that's another name you could throw out there, sure.
Todd Gensler writes in about Harris. Alex, appreciated your take on Harris and his skill set yesterday for the podcast. I also think you guys have it dialed in as far as getting an offensive lineman first and then work from there. You already selected Leatherwood in your mock 1 draft. With all things being equal and considering Leatherwood, Harris, and Lance being on the board, would you consider Lance if he's still sitting there at number 24? Man, people want us to talk in so many absolutes already, don't they? Man, Lance, if he's still sitting there at number 24, again, I'd stick with rebuilding the line, but wonder how you felt about that. I hope they do not go up at all, but maybe get more picks in this year's draft by moving down. Secondly, I heard that next year's Steelers are going to have more cap room than any other team. Is that true? How would that look in free agency? Todd, if you're looking at 2022 cap numbers right now, God bless you, because look at how many people they got on their cap situation is not bad because they don't have anybody under contract. So what is fill in the blanks and tell me what the TJ Watt contract is going to look like as a second-year cap hit. Tell me what some of these possible extensions for. We just talked about Nelson and DeCastro. What's going to happen there? Obviously, they're going to restructure Stephon Tuitt and Cameron Hayward. That's going to push money into 2022. People read stuff online and say, well, look how great the Steelers cap situation is in 2022. And a year from now, they're gonna be saying, Dave, I thought 2022's cap situation was going to be much better than what it is. So you have to look at the total number of guys under contract. You have to try to speculate out what are these contract extensions that are going to happen this year, what these restructures are going to look like next year. Is Ben Roethlisberger going to be in consideration whatsoever? So long story short, you're not going to get outside of talking about the 2022 cap situation the way I just did. I'm not going to talk about 2022 cap situation. How's that?
Yeah, the 2022 cap situation rosters that Will Smith meme of just a dude standing in the empty room. I mean, that is the construct we're sitting with right now. And the reason why the cap situation changes so substantially is one reason why is because Ben comes off the books, because obviously 2021 is the last year of his deal. So, you may have a lot of cap space. You don't have your quarterback and a lot of other potential pieces to surround that, to eat up that cap space. In terms of the first question about 24, Dickerson, I don't think will be in play in 24. You could argue first-round talent, but the medical, I think, is going to push him down. And again, he may be off the Steelers board entirely. I'm not privy to that information, of course, but there are obvious medical concerns with Dickerson. So I don't think he'll be in the mix at 24. I think in terms of where that conversation would start would be at pick 55 in the second round, if he's still there.
All right, the Steelers currently have 17 players, it looks like, under contract for 2022. And last I looked, you have to work off of a rule of 51. So you've got to at least put in some minimal salaries there to get it to the rule of 51. And then on top of it, you have to tell me, even on a Tuitt restructure and a Hayward restructure, that's going to push some money into the year there. What's going to happen with DeCastro and Steven Nelson this offseason? What's TJ Watt? What's the second year of his contract going to look like? You see what I'm saying there? So it's so hard to speculate that far out, and why would you want to right now when you got to get past 2021 first?
Yeah, I'd pay little stock into that. The fact is true, they will have the most cap space, but it means much less when you actually get into the details of why that is.
Tony Carr writes in, do you believe the Steelers have a legitimate chance of winning the Super Bowl in the 2021 season? ? The answer to that question should be a driver of how cap issues will be dealt with. Is it better to kick the can or bite the bullet now? Love the show. Well, look, if you seriously cannot look in the mirror, if you're Kevin Colbert, and they're not, they're probably not going to be able to seriously do this. They're going to be able to think that they're going to tell you that every year is a year that they believe that they're going to do everything they can to win it all. All right. But if for some reason they look in the mirror and they tell each other, you know what, there's no way in God's green earth that we're going to be able to win in 2021 and win it all, then my recommendation would be to go ahead and cut Joe Hayden, to go ahead and cut Ben Roethlisberger, go ahead and cut Marquise Pouncey. Why you if those guys are unlikely to be part of the team in 2022, then why would you put them? Why would you hold on to them in 2021 other than to just have some ceremonial farewell tour?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the go big, go home mentality.
Now we know that's not going to happen. So
yeah, obviously. But what was this question in terms of the Super Bowl chances? Can you repeat that, please?
The question would be, do you believe the Steelers have a legitimate chance of winning the Super Bowl in the 2021 season?
I mean, it depends on how you define legitimate. I mean, I think there's a chance. I think, again, as I mentioned on Monday's show, this is still a team that is capable of winning the AFC North, capable of getting into the playoffs, certainly, and you get in the postseason and you never know what can happen from there. There's still some pieces in place. But to try to be as direct in terms of my answer as possible, in terms of legitimate chance, like a serious chance of winning the Super Bowl, I'll be honest and say no.
I mean, obviously, I think the chances are less than 2020, and not really, quite a step down. Now, with that said, once again, it seemed like we were repeating this every podcast. The only way you're going to compete is if you have Ben Roethlisberger. Period. I think. So you got if you give me the franchise quarterback, and if you can give me a defense, at least maybe that retains, let's say, Cameron Sutton, maybe has a decent draft, maybe you retain Tyson Alualu, Chris Wormley, certain aspects of it, and you can get that defense at least close to what it was in 2020. Then you have to say that there is X amount of chance that this team can compete for the Super Bowl. So,
right, but does that get into the legitimate of the question? It was the word, however you define the word legitimate. Does it reach that threshold? Is what I'm trying to ask.
I guess it depends on the word legitimate.
Yeah, well, I'm asking in your definition of whatever legitimate means to you.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Now, is my legitimate 2%, 20%? I would have less hope and expectations of the chances of that happening than I did the start of the 2020 season, and by a lot. But I think, look, we talked about this the other day. If there's one prime team in the AFC right now, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. And what would happen if, let's say, something happened to Patrick Mahomes, right?
Right, yeah, and I think that's the mentality of you just get.
Then it's a free for all, and we both agree that the Steelers could at least put together a team that makes the playoffs in 2021, right?
Yeah, and they could still win the North too. I mean, it'll be a harder path next year, but they still can do it.
So if you do that, then there's some legitimacy that you think that the Steelers could have some legitimate chance of competing for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, again, I think there's a chance, but this team's getting worse, and a lot of the teams in the AFC are just getting better. Baltimore, I think, is still getting better. I think, well, maybe they're staying the same, but Cleveland's getting better. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs. The Bills are getting better. The Titans, I think, are probably still going to get better. And then you get the whole NFC. So, are the Steelers one of the top 5 teams to win a Super Bowl next season? Probably not. Are they top 10? Maybe they're sitting 9 or 10. And I mean, obviously give yourself a chance, but I just don't feel like you're definitely not one of the favorites. I don't think you're in the top 5. And I don't think that qualifies as legitimate. Give yourself a chance, but I don't think there's a legitimate chance of it happening.
All right, this one from Pastor Joe Green. David Ike's, love your work, love the show, longtime listener and website follower from the beginning. My question, first, I love what Ben has done for the team. Both my kids still wear his jersey on game day. However, if Pouncey retires and Ben follows suit, is Deshaun Watson a possibility? ? I am all in. I know people say this isn't Madden, but a new contract would be negotiated with Watson, freeing up more cash to go with Pouncey, McDonald, and Roethlisberger's dough. I lived through Malone, Brister, O'Donnell, Tom Zach, Stewart, Maddox, and all the in-betweens, and I would be willing to bet that all involved back then, Rooney's front office coach and scouts would have traded 3 first-round picks or whatever the going rate is without hesitation for a real deal elite quarterback who could have actually led them to a Super Bowl. In parentheses, it says O'Donnell doesn't count. My point is, 5 years or 10 or 15 from now, with Watson as your quarterback, an elite quarterback, most would agree. I think no one would be whining. With the sheer volume of bust first-round quarterback picks in the NFL today, why not go for the more sure thing? I know it is unlikely to happen, but I would be all over it if the option became available.
Yes.
People give me these long emails and expect me not to stutter through them.
No, you're fine. I mean, financially, yeah. If Ben were to retire and Pouncey retires too, you could take on Deshaun Watson's contract, correct?
I wrote about that, right? I wonder if Joe read the post on Steelers Depot. I'm one, he didn't. Pastor Joe, research Watson in a search feature on Steelers Depot. I wrote that up a week and a half, 2 weeks ago there. Look, do Alex and I think it's going to happen? No.
No.
All right.
Well, because I don't think Ben's going to retire, but even get past that.
To even entertain the option, it starts right, just like we talked about with Matthew Stafford. Mm-hmm. Something quick would have to happen here with Ben Roethlisberger. Either Ben Roethlisberger would have to retire, or the Steelers would have to retire Ben Roethlisberger quick. Too. I'm talking in the next couple of weeks here. That's first and foremost, if you're talking about anybody other than Ben Roethlisberger. Second, you would have to consummate some sort of deal for Watson or Stafford or whatever. Let's say with Stafford, it's a first-round pick. Let's say with Watson, I think you'd be crazy if you're Houston to not at least get 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. Would you agree?
Agreed. I think it'll take 3 firsts and probably something else.
All right, let's say you even got to that point, and let's say you thought that was okay compensation, which you can make an argument. Mm-hmm. you can make a strong argument that the Steelers should consider giving up 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. That's not crazy talk, I don't think.
Yeah, because someone's going to have to do that. And I'm a big Deshaun Watson fan, so even I would be, I have to think about it some more. But I mean, I don't reject that idea on principle.
I would not rebuke it.
I haven't heard that one in a while. Yeah, I'm with you. I could live with that.
Okay, so we got to those 2 points there. All right, we got past the we slamming the door in Ben Roethlisberger's face. We got to the point of giving of really something that the Steelers have never done, giving up, not in the modern era, at least three first-round draft picks. Let's get us to that point of being of the plausibility factor. Okay, we're standing with you there, Pastor Joe. All right, well, then at that point, all you have to do, you could take on the salary, and on top of that, you could take that salary that he's due, turn that base salary that he's due, what did I say it was, 10 point something, 11 million, something like that, turn it into a signing bonus and get his cap down even further, all right? That gives you some room to play with in 2021. You carry on the rest of his contract the way it's structured. There's nothing really wrong with it. I don't think, from looking at it there. So yeah, all those things could, the plausibility factor is there. Yes. Now you're back to the reality factor of would the Steelers do something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's such a crazy foreign thought with 800 hoops that you have to jump through to get to that point.
They're jumpable through hoops more so than ever before. Some of the crazy outlandish stuff that you and I get on Twitter. I mean, from a plausibility factor, it's there. It's just the Steelers in doing it.
Right. I mean, it would just be chaos in terms of like unprecedented, but that doesn't mean that you don't do it just because it hasn't happened before. So, I mean, again, I think that would take Ben retirement, not that you're cutting Ben and dumping Ben, but if Ben were to retire, and Pouncey probably will retire if Ben retires, then you could entertain the idea, and I wouldn't say you're crazy about it.
All right, so far in the last couple of weeks, we have both given – people cannot come after us anymore and say, you guys don't talk about some of this stuff. You just brush it off. We've talked about Deshaun Watson and Matthew Stafford, right?
Yeah, I mean, we both entertain
the plausibility of it, everything of it, right?
Again, that it would take Ben not being here and him retiring in all likelihood, but yeah, I mean, with Watson, I think he's probably number 3 quarterback in football, and I will trade a whole lot to get at number 3 quarterback in football. Once
again, and as we talked about with the Stafford discussion the other day, if I'm Kevin Colbert and Ben came to me tomorrow and said, you know what, that's it, then yeah, I would pick up the phone at least as a starting point to explore Detroit and Matthew Stafford, and then I'd lob off a call over to Houston too, and get into that conversation. So, yeah, because especially when they pick 24th overall, you're probably not going to get a top echelon quarterback. Dwayne Haskins is not the guy I want to tie my wagon to if I think I can win it all right now. So and plus it would solve your with Stafford, it'd solve your quarterback situation for at least the next 2 years. With Watson, who knows how long it solves your
next 10.
Yeah, quarterback situation there. So there we go. We've addressed it, and please don't ask us to address it anymore.
I'm sure they will.
All right. Anything else? Anything late breaking we need to wrap up here?
Nope, I think it's everything. We'll keep covering the Senior Bowl, then come back Friday, see if there's any new coaching spots hired to talk about. But yeah, we'll find something to discuss on Friday.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me. Hopefully you're reading SteelersDepot.com. Draft profiles up there. Alex is doing. It looks like daily recaps of the practice footage that we get here from the Senior Bowl. Obviously, any comings and goings from the Senior Bowl, any news related to the Steelers and these coaching hires. I'm going to continue on my salary cap series on. So, even though it's the off season, we sure have plenty with 19, 20, 25 posts a day up on Steelers Depot for everybody to peruse there. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. You can follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of Steelers Depot, go hit that ad-free button for $25 for 1 calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site. I promise you we will raise the price of that prior to the start of the probably training camp and all, so you better get in now if you want an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, because quite honestly, we might double that price because we just feel that what we give is worth it. At a minimum, probably going to raise it by about $10. So you might want to get locked in now at $25. You can do so by going to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar, follow the directions from there. So with that, in the meantime, Alex and I will be back on Friday. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.